On today's show, the NHL's annual buyout window has opened and runs through June 30th, but should the Senators take advantage?
And we continue our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings with 3 elite center prospect profiles.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's comedy, theater, any ticket. Go check out Game Time, $20 off. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Today is Friday, June 20th, and Pillsy, I saw another mock draft that made me angry.
I mean, Ross, we famously say the only reason to make lists of any kinds, which a mock draft is a list, is to get people angry. So success by the Athletic. But if you haven't been following along, yet another mock draft has selected Jack Nesbitt going to the Ottawa Senators. And Ross, it's starting to make me think where there's smoke, there's fire. It seems like it's not just a coincidence that this keeps happening. And look, Jack Nesbitt, fine player, but I would say, Ross, of the first rounders that we've covered in our prospect profiles, he's probably the guy we have liked the least.
I'll just go ahead and say it. He will not be in my final top 32.
Yeah, and that's fine. But certainly he fits the profile of what the Ottawa Senators usually draft. And again, we're not trying to get too down on the kid. We're not trying to say he's a bad player. But at 21, there's 5 other guys I would much prefer the Ottawa Senators take a swing on, and that I like the potential more. So I just want one time, Ross, for the Ottawa Senators to select someone that I feel like is good value in that range. And I think I'm going to have to post the Michael Scott meme before the draft. I am ready to be hurt again.
Yep. Well, 2020 was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, when you have 2 picks in the top 5. Hey, they nailed them. I think any redraft of the 2020 draft would have Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson 1 and 2. However you want to flip those, be my guest. But they nailed that one. But
hey, Ridley Gregg was a good pick too, and that was kind of laughed at in some corners of the internet.
Yep, it's true. But this is a big pick for the Ottawa Senators because
three rounds worth of picks, basically.
Yeah, and more likely than not, the Ottawa Senators are not going to have a 2026 first round draft pick. And if you're a team like the Sens that have finally made the playoffs and have goals to not only continue making the playoffs, but go farther, and you look at the Florida Panthers method of saying, F them picks, we're in our win now window, let's win championships, it's likely the Ottawa Senators are going to focus less on drafting and try to use those first-round draft picks in leverage to acquire players in trade to make this team a much stronger contending team. So this is a big one, in my opinion.
And we'll have next week plenty of insight on the draft from an Ottawa Senators perspective. Of course, our mock draft dropped last Sunday with all of our special guests giving us insight, information, and analysis. It is officially our second biggest video ever on YouTube. Let's get it to 35K and beat our record set by the 2022 mock draft. But really appreciate everybody for sharing, liking, commenting. Got a lot of the directors cut that they watched the whole thing. Super appreciative of that. But next week, as I get to it, out of a little bit of shameless self-promotion, we are going to get into specific topics within the draft. For example, what would be the best and worst case scenarios for the Ottawa Senators? We'll get to our final draft list that will be as though we're the head scout of the Ottawa Senators. So mostly considering what we think of the players, but with a sprinkle in that we are drafting for the Ottawa Senators. How does that impact the list? We'll get into all that. Plus, we're going to fire through a real mock draft, our mock draft, Pilsy and myself. And this is going to be a 30-minute one, not a 6-hour and 30-minute one.
Well,
And this is going to obviously focus a little bit more on just the Ottawa Senators, but we're going to make a list, and you can get mad at that as we've gotten mad at the Athletics.
And what you mean by saying a real mock draft is that we're going to do this based on the picks and selections we actually think the teams will be making, not on if we were GM, how we would go ahead. This is more prediction on how we think the draft will pan out. And Ross, if I'm probably going to take a look at elite prospect Cam Robinson's mock draft for some help on that, because he went 6 for 6 last year, which is pretty incredible considering the Beckett-Seneke pick at number 3. Even the player himself was absolutely shocked at that. So that's something to take note of.
Yeah, Cam Robinson, one of the best in
Absolutely.
the business. He also has been on the trail of another topic in the National Hockey League that just came true today. We'll discuss after the break why Claude Giroux's contract may be taking so long. But Pillsy, the buyout window is also here. We haven't seen any yet. The Dallas Stars avoided having to buy out a player by shipping off another for a very cheap return. Mason Marchment is heading to Seattle, where a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick are coming back to Dallas. That was necessity after we mentioned on the show yesterday, Matt Duchene's contract comes in and left them with barely what most owners have in their back pocket on any given Sunday in cap space. So now that that is avoided, there's still a possibility Matt Dumba could be a buyout option down there. There's others across the league that come to mind. Justin Hall, Matthias Samuelsson signed that huge contract before ever scoring a goal in the NHL. The Athletic has a full article on which players could be buyout potentials, none of which play for the Ottawa Senators. But put your Sens GM hat on right now, Pilsy, as I see you have. Any buyout potential candidates for you if you're Staios and Michael Andlauer?
Yeah, I mean, there is one, and it's David Perron. I think we talked about it in yesterday's episode, Ross, where we had troubles placing him in this lineup, even if the Ottawa Senators just keep with the forward lineup that they have now. But if they're looking to add another forward, specifically a top 6, that even makes it more difficult to find a spot for him. And B, they need to clear some more money to be able to do that, I would think.
And the other part of that, too, is Travis Green has shown no indication that he's going to go anywhere but Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg, and Michael Amadio as a 3rd line that plays a lot of minutes. So basically, if you can't find yourself in one of the top 4 winger positions on this roster, you're a 4th liner by default.
Exactly. Yeah. And that makes things difficult for sure. So David Perron has 1 year left on his $4 million after he signed a 2-year, $4 million AAV deal out of free agency last year. So if they were to buy him out, he's at the 67% buyout multiplier. So the cap hit, if they were to do this, would be 1.333333 next season, which would save you 2.66666. And then you would essentially roll over that 1 million threes to next year. So your cap hit would be an extra 1.33 million. So you have to decide, can we use that 2.66 million to bolster our lineup? And Ross, you have to decide, do we make a hard business decision, or do we save face with a respected veteran and try to make it work? And that's what the Ottawa Senators have to decide. But Ross, it's a tough decision, because what would the Vegas Golden Knights do?
Yeah. Well, that's not always the way that you want to do business, especially when you don't have the amenities that the Vegas Golden Knights do. I'm going to pick up on one point that you made there, and it's what the reputation is around the league. And Jeff Merrick made a good point. I mentioned the Dallas deal yesterday. Mason Marchment was traded to another non-tax income state, and that was after Mason Marchment took a discount to stay in Dallas. So you don't want the inner workings of the agent world being in your back pocket or talking behind your back about players not wanting to come there because they're not going to be treated with respect.
True.
David Perron was a heck of a player in the playoffs for the Ottawa Senators. He gave it all in the second half of the season. He was a big reason why they made the playoffs. I think if you're looking to go down a path of finding something different, you call David Perron's agent and you say, hey, I give you permission to talk with other teams, and you make a trade work if that's the case. One, it could potentially save you more money if there is a team with cap space that would like to add him. You could take all $4 million of cap away. Two, you could potentially pick a preferred destination for the player. And I think three is your reputation around the league would be a lot better than buying out a guy who you signed for a 2-year free agent contract. And everyone knows that at this age, that second year, that's how you get the player who I'm sure had other interests. So then to cut ties after the first year, I get that there's the business element, but I also think that there's the human and respect element to a guy who's played over 1,200 games in the league.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what you have to weigh, because the Vegas Golden Knights, they're not worried about the reputation. They're worried about winning, and they found success in doing business that way, and that works for them. It doesn't work for everybody. But Ross, if you go down the trading route, I'm afraid you lose pretty much all leverage. So if you are going to try to trade him to a destination he likes or whatever kind of trade route you go, you're probably looking at two negatives for the Ottawa Senators. You're probably going to have to attach a draft pick or multiple, or you have to retain salary. And if you want to save face and not buy him out and just try to retain a similar amount of salary, that could work as well. But I don't like if Steve Staios is calling teams being like, hey, are you interested in David Perron, or David Perron's available? Immediately they're like, well, we have all the leverage here because we can just walk away, where you're actively trying to move him or looking at that as an option. So I believe that would make it difficult. And I want to make it clear, I agree, Ross. David Perron was a big reason why this team was able to make playoffs when he got comfortable here, and off ice things settled and his injuries got better. And in the playoffs, I really liked him. He was a big piece of this team as well. But if you keep David Perron, I think you're pretty much stuck at rolling back this forward core, which isn't the worst thing. They made the playoffs last year, but if you're trying to get ahead, and we talked about it, the Atlantic Division is the toughest division in hockey. I'm not sure rolling back this forward core gets it done or pushes you above where you got last year. So this is a very difficult spot that the Ottawa Senators are in, and I don't envy Steve Staios at all.
Fascinating discussion, and it can continue as the Senators look to change up the mojo that got them to 6 games in the first round, but no further, and lost to a team that won the Stanley Cup. 2 other options that I know have been thrown out there, whether it's by Bruce Garriock or others online, is Matt Sogard and Zach McEwen, 2 players that are on one-way contracts for next season at league minimum. So because Matt Sogard is under 25 years old, a buyout for him would have an annual cap hit of $129,000 over the next 2 years. Seemingly nothing. It's a 1/3 buyout option. However, if you're on a contract that pays you league minimum, which is $775,000 plus $350,000, so both these players would be in that category, your entire cap hit is buried in the minors if they clear waivers. So unless they're really that strapped about real money, where a savings of over the course of 2 years with Sogard would be about $500,000, and with Zach McEwen, because he's over 25, you would literally be saving $260,000 in real money, and then giving yourself a cap hit of $258,000 for Zach McEwen and $129,000 for Sogard. I just think that makes absolutely no sense. I think the right play is to either look to move them this summer or put them on waivers, bite the bullet, pay them their NHL money in the AHL. You keep saying how you want to have a great AHL organization. We know Zach McEwen can be a Wayne Gretzky type player in the American Hockey League, and Matt Sogard, obviously injuries have really taken a toll on his numbers, not coming off a good season, but still young, still has potential, and we'll see. But I don't think you even consider buying out either of those players.
Me neither. It's so inconsequential. Like I don't see the point in that. I think really the only realistic option to look at would be David Perron.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the buyout window coming up for the National Hockey League. I should say already open, but coming up in terms of nobody has actually been bought out yet. Maybe once there are buyouts, we look at some, say, hey, would that be a fit with the Ottawa Senators? Because we've seen players really look for a situation that does them right after coming off a buyout, because, hey, they're getting paid from another organization as well. On the other side, that scoop, if you will, on why Claude Giroux hasn't signed a contract yet with the Ottawa Senators. And then we'll get back to our draft rankings. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time gives you last-minute ticket deals, zone deals for deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ticket prices often drop the closer you get to puck drop or the start of your event, so you can score big without overpaying. I used Game Time when I went to New York City, not for sports, though. I saw a concert, I went to a show on Broadway, and that is the way to do it with Game Time. You can save huge with their zone deals. They pick the best seats at the lowest prices, and right now zone deals are offering 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. You can see the seat that you're going to sit at, so you know what to expect, and Game Time includes fees up front and backs every order with their ticket coverage guarantee, covering cancellations, job loss, and even offering 24-hour returns. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
All right, Pilsy. So we are exactly 1 week away from the National Hockey League draft, and we've got so many NHL draft prospect profiles available individually on YouTube. You can go check those out there. The monster mock draft, and we teased our second mock draft where we actually will try to make this as realistic as possible. That will be this upcoming Tuesday. On Monday, we will finish our draft rankings, tee up the week from a Senators perspective. On Wednesday, it will be our best and worst case scenarios for Ottawa. On Thursday, our final draft prep. And then on Friday morning, we're going to have our usual episode on Friday morning, 1 week from today, that we'll talk about what we're hearing from the Senators camp and around the NHL, really just tee up the day. And then we will have a full episode for you Friday, a first round reaction draft. Saturday morning, I believe it starts at 11:30 or noon Eastern. We're going to go live for the second round and beyond until we ain't got it in us anymore. But I think it's going to be a marathon one there. It's been a while. Maybe we'll get some special guests to join us as well. But Pilsy, by then, I swear we need Claude Giroux certainty. But do you think his agent, Pat Brisson, has just been a little busy with the Jonathan Toews contract that was just signed by the Winnipeg Jets? Because you need a literature degree to read this thing.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Brisson must have been like a game show host being like, bonuses, because it was... You had to click the show more on Elliot Friedman's tweet for listing all the bonuses for Jonathan Toews. But, I mean, all jokes aside, that's how you get these veteran plus 35-year-old deals done, in my opinion, especially for the guys that are comfortable and are preferring to do 1-year deals. And Pat Brisson, same agent as Claude Giroux, like you mentioned, this definitely, I don't know if it would be a copy of the Toews bonuses, because that's intense. And obviously Jonathan Toews has quite the resume, and going back to Winnipeg is a big deal. But
he also hasn't played in 2 years.
Exactly. And who knows what his health is like. I mean, he spent a bunch of time in India doing I don't even know what to properly call it, but
biohacking.
Sure, biohacking, recovering. Yeah, Ross, do you want to read out these bonuses for the listeners?
Yeah, let me just get off my Google search of what biohacking means, because sometimes I say things I'm not sure what they mean, but sometimes
I don't know if biohacking is it. Let's call it.
No, it is.
Oh, okay.
Well, although it is probably specific what he did. Biohacking is a broad term for non-specific lifestyle self-improvement.
Oh, okay. No, I like that. Every time I doubt you on your vocabulary, you end up being right. So that's
It
my bad.
may involve making incremental changes to one's body, diet, and lifestyle to improve one's health and sign what could be a $7 million NHL contract.
Nice.
So the base salary is only $2 million for Toews with the Winnipeg Jets, much like Claude Giroux coming home. And after 20 regular season games, 30 regular season games, 40, 50, and 60, he'll get a $550,000 addition for a bonus. If Toews plays 50 games and the Jets make the playoffs, boom, another $500,000. If the Jets win a round and Toews plays 50% of the playoff games, boom, $250,000. And it goes on and on, $250,000 for every round that they win. And if the Jets win the Stanley Cup and Toews plays 50% of the Stanley Cup final, boom, another $1 million for Jonathan Toews. So they say you make your reputation in the playoffs. Toews has already done that. So now Toews is making his money in the playoffs too, if it comes to that. But jokes aside, and I think structure aside, because this is obviously the most heavy bonus deal I think we've ever seen in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And it's because it's two-pronged, right? You get the bonuses availability because he is over 35 years old. And then the other way that you can get bonuses is if you're coming off a long-term injury or absence from the league. He hasn't played in 2 years. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think that you're looking at it from a much more micro perspective from Claude Giroux. But what about like a $3.5 million base salary and then being able to throw in these games played bonuses, these playoff bonuses? And you know what? Give him $10 million if he wins the Stanley Cup and plays in all the games for the Ottawa Senators. Like at
and
that
the
point,
key to the city. Like just give him everything. Ross, so when we initially started talking about this, you were throwing out $10,000 bonuses for games played in the regular season. I don't think that's worth the ink in Pat Brisson's pen to write that down. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that.
yeah, well, I'm just looking right now, and it was what was it? No, 100K, not 10K. Because I was going off of Joe Pavelski's contract, where it was a $5.5 million contract, but he got 100K at 10, 20,
okay.
30,
So
40,
that I think you just
50.
misspoke then.
Oh, nice. I said 10K.
Yeah, you did.
Damn. Maybe that's what I meant. The taxes were going to be on
Nice.
each one. So yes, that's the situation with Claude Giroux's agent doing the most complex contract in NHL history. Jokes aside, Pat Brisson has an entire agency working under him. I'm sure that he can multitask and get a Giroux contract done. But selfishly, I'd like that to be Monday at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, and I really would like it to be playoff heavy bonuses like that. Like if you're bringing Claude Giroux back, you're convincing him, hey, the money we're saving by you taking a hometown discount or whatever you want to call it, a discount, is being used to make this team better to go deeper in the playoffs. So reward him with not only making the team better by a discount, but then extra bonuses on top if things go well in the playoffs.
And Joe Saucy TV on Twitter says, win the cup, 10% ownership of the CTC. We know the Giroux family loves being there anyways for activities for the kids in the summer.
Well, and 10% of an arena you're going to leave.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll sell it, right?
To who?
I don't know, car dealership.
The Black
Maybe
Bears.
we can buy it. We'll do the show there.
True. That actually would be sick.
That would be so sick. Hell yeah. All right. On the other side, we're actually getting into an elite company. We're at the point in the draft rankings where I'm legitimately jealous that these players won't be Ottawa Senators. However, I just have to remember those 2 wins in the playoffs were unreal. But so are these players. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pilsy, we have made it to the top 6. Holy smokes. Feels like we've been doing these for about a month. We have. But now it's the exciting part. The payoff of all those. Maybe they'll be good. Maybe they won't. We're at the point of the draft where if you have a top 6, top 7 pick, it's going to take a lot, I think, to change your mind and have you trade that. Even though Cam Robinson said it could be, I think there's some heavy, talented players coming up in today's show. Coming in at number 6 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, we're going back to Djurgården, where we find Anton Frondell, a centerman, left shot. The big question with Frondell is, does he project as a centerman in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, we'll answer that question as we go along here. Let's get to his stats last year. He played in Sweden, in Djurgården, in the Hockey Allsvenskan League, 29 games, 11 goals, 14 assists, 25 points, finished a +11. Then in the qualification, do you call them qualification playoffs? That's what I've been calling them. I feel like that's appropriate. Maybe a Swede can let us know if I'm
Alex
off there.
Lindskog, let us know.
Yes. Oh, no. Now he's going to start letting us know if our Swedish names are wrong, too, which they almost certainly are. I think Djurgården, I've got that one down.
Yeah, I also think you're better at Swedish names than you are French.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm sure I'm going to stumble over one player's name. But let's stick with Frondell here. 16 qualification playoff games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points total. And then he also spent some time in the J20 National League, 10 games, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points, and was with Team Sweden at the U18s, where he only had 3 points in 5 games. But Scott Wheeler mentions, and it's something to be aware of, that he was coming off some jet lag from that, as he was still playing with Djurgården in those qualification playoffs, and then had to bust over to the U18s. I forget where the U18s were played, but he did.
I think they're usually in Texas.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, they were in Texas. So that's quite the journey for him to make. So understandable that maybe he wasn't at the top of his game there.
But it's kind of a trend with him with international tournaments where he wasn't at his best, right? The under 18s, last year he was great at the under 17s for sure, but it feels like, yeah, maybe it's just the under 18s, but still, to me, it's something that you want to be on the big stage in North America when there's a ton of scouts there. And I guess the other question for me is, how much did not being at the World Juniors hurt his stock?
Yeah, especially because he's touted as Sweden's kind of top prospect. Like, there was talks about him being the first overall pick in this year's draft before this season started. Like, he had a lot of hype behind his name.
I just think that you're looking for him to show that he can be a centerman. He's got pro qualities for sure. Like, we'll get to the shot, is elite. And maybe that to me is why, again, being on the wing, being able to get off of rush chances a little bit easier and not having to split D or find yourself a little more open space. I just think that this guy could be an elite winger in the National Hockey League that can forecheck and get in front of the net and bang bodies and just be a power forward, because I think that he's got the qualities to do that. But I also think when you're looking at a player with that much skill who's played center his whole career, there's a bit of pride on the line at that point as well, where he's like, no, why would I change positions? I've been the best at my position in my country for years. Like, let me play center. So if he goes to a team like Philadelphia, I just say that because we have him ranked 6, Philly draft 6, Philly needs centers. He would probably love that, because I think long-term they would want him to be a centerman. But if he goes to a certain situation where, let's say, they're already flush down the middle,
like Seattle,
all of a sudden, maybe that could be a blessing in disguise for him. Because if I was drafting, to me, I wouldn't be sold. Compared to the other centermen that were on here, there's a few that I think can be guaranteed centermen in the NHL. And there's some that I think might be benefiting more from playing the wing.
Now, Scott Wheeler did note he played mostly wing last year.
Against men. But whenever he's up against his own age group, he's played center.
Yes, but he did mostly play against men in the Allsvenskan League. I think, Ross, you start him off on the wing when he gets to the NHL, and then you work on making him a centerman. But let's get to some of the on-ice abilities that he has. Watching highlights of him, he's got nice hands. He's got a great shot. His shot is his bread and butter.
Sick.
He finished the season with 19 points in 11 games. Wheeler says he protects the puck well using that size that he has. What do we have him at here? 6'1", 204, good size. That's why he's able to be effective up against men. But EP says his separating skill, and I noticed this on the highlights as well, is his ability to get open and then use his great shot. Like, he's a great flank guy on the power play. He's got a booming one-timer that gets off his stick quickly, and the scout polls even gave him second best shot in this draft. So that is apparent. Now, Ross, where your concerns about him being a center lie mostly would be in his transition game.
Correct.
This guy,
and that it all comes through the skating too.
Exactly. This guy is not a transition guy. He's got heavy boots. He's a slower skater. But also, I think with prospects, when they're this size, it takes them a little bit of time to get used to their body, because I'm sure he had a big growth spurt, not only in height, but weight as well. So once you get a little more comfortable in your size and you work with the proper skating coaches, you're able to figure out a stride and a pattern and a pace that works for you. So I think maybe he could figure that out, but I do think I'm with you, Ross. I think he'd be more effective as a winger.
I think that when you're looking at Anton Frondell, though, and you want to convince yourself that he can play center, I've heard some nicknames for him, Baby Barkov, in a way that they call him built like a military tank, is how the NHL European Central Scouting Chief refers to him as. So he's the type of guy where, like, he's a unit. He's gonna play physical. He's got so much to work with, and that's why you might take him even earlier than 6. I think he's probably gonna be around 6 on my rankings by the end of it. But if you look at the rankings of our scouts here, and by the way, Anton Frondell weighed in at the combine. He's 6'1", 204 already, and only turned 18 in May. So when we talk about missing the World Juniors this past year, he'll be there next year. Left shot, plays center. I think plays wing. Played wing against men last year. 3rd on Craig Button's list. 5th with Bob McKenzie. 6th with Wheeler, Pronman, and McKeens. Locked on NHL prospects down at 10. And elite prospects at 13th. So a range of 3 to 13. But if you go with the old Olympic scoring and take out the 3 and the 13, all of a sudden between 5 and 10, a little bit easier to kind of get a read on what the scouts think of him. The stats are impressive, and so is the build. And I think that patience is going to be key with him, and it looks like guaranteed going back to Djurgården next year. Much like Victor Eklund, they want to see through what they helped accomplish, helping Djurgården be promoted from the Allsvenskan to the Swedish Hockey League. So Frondell would be in the top league in Sweden next year.
Yeah, and I think it would be good for them to have that elevated challenge going from the Allsvenskan to the SHL. And Ross, we're talking about rankings and stuff. I don't know about you, but I feel like more often than not in mock drafts, the Chicago Blackhawks are the team everybody seems to pick Frondell going to. So that's interesting there, because obviously they're looking for kind of players to surround Connor Bedard and that have different skill sets. And certainly I would say Frondell has very different skill sets than Bedard. So that is a place I could see making sense for him to land. But three's a little rich for me. I don't think I'll have him ranked that high in my rankings.
Well, where do you have him on your Sens stars?
My Sens stars, I got him at 4 stars, Ross. I do think he's going to be a winger. I like his pro skills. He's going to be a shoot-first guy. He's not a transition guy. There's concerns about his play driving and his skating. I think he's going to be a finisher on a power play unit. I like this player, but I just think in this range, there's 2 or 3 other guys that I think have a lot more upside, but you can't deny how good his shot is, and that if you set him up with the right players, he could really pop off here. I like EP's shades of Brock Nelson and Anders Lee. If he plays center, Brock Nelson type. If he plays wing, Anders Lee type. I think those are pretty spot on.
So at what point in the draft would you be like, damn, that's a steal for Anton Frondell? I mean, if it turns out like Lundell, he's having a heck of a career too.
I was going to say Freudian slip there from you. If he makes it to Seattle or Buffalo, that's nice value in my opinion.
So back of the top
possible.
10.
I think it's possible he gets there. Yeah,
back of the top 10 would be a complete steal. I'm with you there. With an average ranking of 7 on the dot, Anton Frondell comes in at number 6 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. You can find all of our prospect profiles free and available on YouTube. All right, coming in at number 5, we are into the top 5 of our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. We're heading to the QMJHL, where we find winner Caleb Denoyers.
Oh, Caleb Denoyers is an exciting player, Ross. Let's get into his point totals with the Moncton Wildcats last year in the QMJHL. In 56 games, 35 goals, 49 assists, 84 points. And then, got to say it with the caveat, plus minus, not everything, but plus 51. And then, Ross, you talk about him being a proven winner. You want guys to be able to produce just as well, or at least effectively in the playoffs as well. You don't want him to be a regular season merchant. Denoyers has proven he can do that in 19 playoff games, 30 points. I mean, this kid, he had more than an assist per game in the playoffs. He's an absolute stud.
And his team victorious in the QMJHL playoffs. They made it to the Memorial Cup, where it came out afterwards that Denoyers was playing with 2 bum wrists and still was able to dominate in the faceoff circle, but he struggled points-wise going up against the other elite teams in the CHL. Especially you mentioned the assists. Well, that to me is why he's such an elite player, is he makes his teammates better. Whoever he plays with, all of a sudden they have career years, and Denoyers does it in so many different ways to set up his teammates. He's 6'2", only 178 pounds. Definitely work to do to grow into that frame. Only turned 18 in April. He's a left shot centerman who is ranked as high as 4th on McKeen's and Corey Pronman's rankings. He's 5th for Scott Wheeler, 6th on Bob McKenzie's midterm rankings, and 7th for Craig Button, Locked On NHL Prospects, and Elite Prospects. Now, I might be sipping the Kool-Aid on Caleb Denoyers, but you can't tell me there's 6 prospects in this draft class that you'd want in your system more than Denoyers. I just think that you're getting the full package with him, from leadership to on-ice talent to defensive responsibility. I just don't know how this guy isn't the top 6 centerman in the NHL.
I'm with you, Ross. I think us having him at 5 is perfect. Every time I do a mock draft in my head or my rankings, I got him at 5. I think the Nashville Predators would be in a great spot to have him be the crown jewel of their prospect pipeline. But that's getting ahead of ourselves here. He was also the first overall pick in the 2023 QMJHL draft. He's a Quebec kid. Elite offensive player. Like, watching highlights of him, he has vision to read plays and get himself to prime areas to either score or be open for a pass. He has a good shot, but his shot isn't his bread and butter. Interestingly enough, he split his time as a center and a winger. I'm not sure what that split was, how often he was playing either or, but you see the versatility there with him. And EP highlights how he always involves his teammates in transition with short passes and give and goes. Like, it's just so fun to watch this guy, and you can really see him. I think, Ross, this is a guy that projects to be a centerman in the NHL just because of his vision and his elite playmaking and his ability to not be a liability defensively as well. This is a top 6 centerman for sure.
Easily. To me, I think the one of the most projectable top 6 centermen that this draft class has. And I think when you're looking at a draft class that's also filled with centermen, we're doing 3 today, and it feels like everyone in the top 20 can play center. Now, there's a decision to make for Denoyers for next season. He was named captain of the Moncton Wildcats, but hasn't committed to going back there necessarily. So I'm curious to see what's next for Denoyers. But if he is the captain, he's following in his brother's footsteps. His brother, a Flyers draft pick, by the way, a couple of years ago, plays in the AHL there. He signed still. So he's probably hoping, hey, forget 5. Let's get to 6. Come play with me. But his brother, Elliot Denoyers, was a 6th-round pick, and he was also the captain of the Halifax Mooseheads a few years ago. But with Caleb Denoyers, you talked about him being the first overall pick in the Q draft. Well, what did he do when he got there? How about almost a point per game as a 16-year-old dude? Like, this guy just scores everywhere he goes. I think that he needs to be in the NHL, not next year, play one more year junior, but I don't think this guy ever learns what the AHL is. I think he's a direct to the NHL type kid because of that versatility too, that you can play him on a 4th line and he won't be out of place necessarily, and then work his way up the lineup, work his way to the middle of the ice. And the team that drafts Caleb Denoyers is getting a stud for years to come.
Now, do you think he could be a kid that considers college? You mentioned, though, the weight's a little low and that obviously he's been dominating in the queue. Do you think that would make sense for him? But where I don't think it's maybe a slam dunk that it's going to happen is this is a Quebec kid. Maybe he wants to be put in a position to play on a more francophone type team. I don't know how much stock the Quebec kids put into that. So it'll be interesting to see what path he goes, especially being named captain and being like, thanks, but I'm not sure I'm going to be back. That's an interesting move.
Yeah, thanks. I'll let you know. He's being heavily recruited right now. No decision has been made. Boston College would really like to add him to their lineup. Interesting. I think that the best bet for him at this point, so close to the draft, wait until you're drafted, see what the team next to you that takes you wants to do. Denoyers' goal is to play in the NHL as soon as possible. So the way to do that is to discuss with the team that takes you. How many Sens stars for Caleb Denoyers?
4.5 for me, Ross. Really, this is a 5-star guy, but the Ottawa Senators don't have a chance of drafting him. I like this kid a lot, and I'm jealous for the team that's going to get him. Hopefully, he goes to Nashville. I don't want him in our division.
I agree. With an average ranking of 5.71, Caleb Denoyers comes in at number 5 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. You can find all of our draft profiles free and available on YouTube. All right, coming in at number 4 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, we're going to Boston College now, where one of the younger kids in college hockey from last season is James Hagens. And this guy, every time he puts on a Team USA jersey, it feels like he's setting a new record as well.
Yeah, the point we talk about Caleb Denoyers putting up points. James Hagens would like to have a word about that, because where do we let's lead up to what he got to this year, Ross. Not this season, but last season with the US NTDP. How about 102 points, record breaking in 58 games? That's pretty good. Kept it going with Team USA at the U18s. 22 points in 7 games.
Tournament record.
Yeah, tournament record again. And then how about being a point per game guy? 37 games, 11 goals, 26 assists, 37 and 37 plus 21 in your freshman year at college in the NCAA. And then let's keep it going. Sorry, I cut it off. We're not done here. At the World Juniors with Team USA, 9 points in 7 games. So this kid just puts up points wherever he goes.
And he's doing it through transition. Everything in James Hagens' game relies on his skating ability. And this guy is a one-man zone exit and a one-man zone entry. He uses his teammates too, but he can fly and make plays at high speeds. There's a reason why some teams, even though, and we'll get to the reason why he's in a sense falling from being a projected first overall pick. I believe earlier on in the year, our friends at FanDuel had James Hagens versus the field to go first overall. And then things changed despite Matthew Schaefer not playing more than 17 games all season. Michael Misa seeming to have jumped him. But James Hagens, despite being 5'11", is 209 pounds. And he comes in as a November 2006 birthday, played the entirety of this past year, basically in college as an 18-year-old, played center in college as a young player, left shot as high as 2. But that is Bob McKenzie's midterm rankings. We'll see next Monday how Bob McKenzie's final rankings reflect James Hagens. He's 3rd on Scott Wheeler, Locked On NHL Prospects, and McKean's Hockey's boards. Elite Prospects has him at number 4, Corey Pronman at 5, and I need Craig Button to explain himself here. 8th overall on Craig Button's rankings. It makes no sense to me. This kid is being disrespected. I don't know if he's just been too high for too long, and we're getting scout fatigue the way that we've seen in the past. Yeah. But there's just no way this guy's the 8th best player in the draft.
I agree. His ability to skate with the puck and just a transition ace is incredible. And Wheeler even compliments his endurance, being able to keep these high speeds going throughout the game. Like, this guy is a gazelle out there. Like, he's impossible to keep up with. He's shifty. And I was watching his highlight reel, Ross. If I'm the New York Rangers who drafted Gabe Perreault, I'm selling the farm to get this guy. If you can get Hagens and Gabe Perreault together, every single highlight pack, it was Hagens to Perreault, Hagens to Perreault, Hagens to Perreault. Like, these guys had such good chemistry in college.
Except you could say the same for the year before with Will Smith, because basically he just replaced Will Smith at center on that elite line where he had Perreault on one side and Ryan Leonard on the other. Just a quick correction, too. I'm an idiot here, and it makes him look a lot bigger. James Hagens, 186 pounds at the combine.
Okay, I was going to say something. The plus 200 seemed a little much for a guy that speedy, but I trusted you on that one.
Nobody called us out on the mock draft. We had the same weight.
Oops. Yeah, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered what James Hagens brings. He puts up points, and his skating and his transition game is everything that you look at when you look at this guy. EP, the only concerns they had about him, Ross, and now that we got the weight correct, this starts to make sense, about his puck protection abilities in the pros. Sure, if you can outrace everybody, that's fine, but you get into a board battle or you get squeezed wide and into a corner, that's where maybe there's going to be some difficulties going up against big, strong shutdown defensemen.
I think we're looking at a player that could excel at center. I know a lot of people say, hey, James Hagens at the wing. No, James Hagens is a centerman in the next level. So let's leave that conversation behind. I know that it's a hot topic. Is he big enough to play down the middle? This guy is faster than Braden Point. I'm not worried about James Hagens one bit down the middle. I am worried about the people that don't have him as a top 5 pick in this draft class. He is elite. And I think if he does start falling out of the top 3, I'll even say, Utah might be willing, if they are that set on Brady Martin, or if it is a smokescreen, and they also do have Logan Cooley, who is, in a way, James Hagens developed a little bit further. I don't know if Hagens makes full sense for Utah. There should be a bajillion teams calling him and saying, what can we do to move up and take James Hagens? There are reports that multiple teams are trying to get James Hagens, thinking that he could fall. It's very smart way of thinking, because James Hagens can be a stud in the NHL for a long time. Pillsy, how many Sens stars you got for James Hagens?
I got 4.5 stars from Ross. I agree. I think he's going to be a centerman. I think he's going to be someone that we look at in 5-10 years and like, oh my God, this team got him at this spot. That's incredible value. So I'm a James Hagens believer.
So am I. And that's why he comes in at number 4 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings with an average of 4.29, thanks to Craig Button just having no respect for James Hagens' game. You can find all of our draft profiles free and available for you on YouTube. All right, Pillsy, we've made it to the top 3 of our draft rankings. Looking forward to that next Monday. And draft week's one of our favorite weeks of the year, with rumors, with signings, with trades. It always feels like it lives up to the hype. Like, sometimes trade deadlines, they can come and go. This one was exciting for Ottawa, but there are some that can come and go. The draft week, I just feel like it always comes through with fun, with excitement, and hopefully we get some technical difficulties too, so they never do this decentralized thing again.
Yeah, you're going to see Ross cutting wires in LA.
If anyone wants to sponsor a trip for me to LA, feel free.
Yeah, offers out there. Final thoughts from me, Ross, and this is directed at General Manager of the Ottawa Senators, Steve Staios. Don't announce any news till Monday morning. Let's get things in order. Get the Giroux contract signed. Open your desk drawer. I'm opening my desk drawer. Put it in there, tuck it away, put a paperweight on it, close the desk drawer, and say, I'm going to wait till 9 a.m. on Monday to announce that. Please.
Hell yeah. And we will talk to you just after 9 a.m. on Monday. We will be posting our draft profiles that we've done this week throughout the weekend without the subscriber button on, because we would appreciate if you subscribe and click the notification bell to get Locked On Senators notifications, but we don't want to spam it throughout a weekend. But you can go check those out. And if it comes up in conversation with a friend talking about a prospect, boom, you can send them the link to our latest draft profiles. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks for watching, listening, and engaging with the show. Have a great weekend, everyone. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.